Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We are in 1 Samuel chapter 1. We're going to be starting in verse 8 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, we're going to finish up this part where Hannah and Elkanah and Peninnah, they go to worship God at Shiloh. Peninnah is harassing, provoking Hannah. And now we get into verse 8 where it says here, Elkanah, he basically sees Hannah. She's disturbed and she's sad and she's brokenhearted. Now verse 8 says, Then said Elkanah, her husband, to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? And why do you eat not? And why is your heart grieved? Am not I better to thee than 10 sons? And it seems like, why is he saying, why are you weeping? He should know. He knows why she's weeping. And in a sense, he kind of does nothing about it. But, we so far in these lessons, we've kind of, seen the negative side of Elkanah. But now we're going to see we're going to see there is a positive side to Elkanah. In this verse, we give Elkanah credit for making an attempt to shift Hannah's attention from what she does not have, which is a baby, to what she does have. And that's a loving and a caring husband. If Hannah were to answer the last question in verse 8, she would probably say both yes and no. The last question is, am not I better to thee than 10 sons? And she would probably say, well, on one side, yes, but no, not really. If she were never ever to bear any children for her whole life, then yes, Elkanah is worth 10 sons to her. But not knowing if Hannah will ever bear children, then no, she wants a child. She wants a child. A woman's love for her husband is different than her love for someone whom she carried inside of her for 9 months. Someone who may have the same hair color, the same eye color, someone who she may pass down to them the same shape of her mouth, of her nose, and maybe her hand size and different things. It's a woman's love for her husband is different than her love for her child. There isn't really much that a man can do to alleviate the yearning in a woman to fulfill what God has created her to do. And that is to not only to be a helper to her husband, but also to produce children. But Elkanah does his best to divert her attention to all that she does have, and that is that she has a loving and a caring husband. And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get her to see what she actually does have. Now, let's get into verses 9 through 18. Chapter 1, verses 9 through 18 deal with Hannah's prayer. All right, Hannah's prayer. So let's begin here in verse 9. So now, Hannah, she's all upset. She can't eat at this feast. And now in verse 9, so Hannah, she rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh, and after they had drunk. Now Eli, the priest, sat upon a seat by a post of the temple of the Lord. Now, it seems that for the sake of her husband, she stayed and she did eat the sacrificial meal. But she really had no heart to do it. Because of being burdened in her heart, she got away as soon as possible. She had already made up her mind what she wanted to do. She ate the meal, but but her mind, while she was eating this meal, she already determined what she was going to do as soon as the meal was over. We also see Eli, the high priest, who is a descendant of Ithamar, a younger son of Aaron. So now Eli comes on the scene. Eli was sitting upon a throne, which was probably at the entrance that led into the temple. From this vantage point, Eli could see all people who entered into the temple area and who left. Now, it says in the actual Hebrew, it says he sat upon a seat. And most scholars interpret that as being a throne or as being a high seat, a seat of authority. Basically, he was sitting and watching people coming in, watching people going out. Now, but this would also put Eli in a position to both hear and to give advice or make judgments that people had. At where he was sitting, people could walk by him. As the high priest, they could walk by him and ask him questions. What should I do? What sacrifice should I use for this offering this sin or whatever? They could talk to him and get advice from him. Now, later on in chapter 4 and verse 18, we see that Eli is both old and he's fat. He is. He's old and he's fat. And we're going to see why he's fat when we get there in chapter 4. Now, verses 10 and 11. Let's read verses 10 and 11. It says, "And she was in bitterness of soul, and she prayed unto the Lord, and she wept sore. And she vowed a vow, and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look upon the affliction of your handmaid, and remember me, and not forget your handmaid, but will give unto your handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head." Now, there are times when the prayers that we pray are like Hannah's. They come from the bitterness of our heart. Many of the Psalms are written, are songs of prayer that come from a bitter heart. If you read many of the Psalms, a lot of the Psalms come from a broken and a bitter heart. Hannah's bitterness was a result of not having what she truly and deeply desired. But Hannah's prayer, which sprang from the bitterness of her heart, was not limited to just a prayer, but it included a vow. Oh yeah. When she went there, she knew exactly what she was going to do. When I'm done with this meal, I'm going to the temple. And I'm going to pray and I'm going to vow. That's exactly what she had already determined in her heart. By making her prayer into a vow, she was making herself responsible to fulfill, to the fulfillment of her own prayer and vow. She both asks from God and she vows to give back to God. So by vowing, she was praying and vowing. But by vowing, she was making herself responsible to fulfill that vow. She wants God to give her a child, but not just any child, but she wants a man-child, which was of great importance in those days. In the giving of the child, she would give that child back to God. But the vow that she made to God was not only to give the child back to God, but it included placing a Nazirite vow upon the child. The Nazirite vow on the child would make her sacrificially responsible to make sure that not only she kept the child's vow, but that she would also teach the child to keep the vow. Now, Numbers chapter 6 gives the specific instructions for those who are under a Nazirite vow. Now, the Nazirite vow mainly deals with abstaining from alcohol and from haircuts. From alcohol, no alcohol, none at all. No alcohol, no haircuts. And when it says alcohol, it also means grapes. Anything from the vine. You can't eat anything from the vine. Now, this prayer vow that Hannah offered to God was not some second-rate thing. She was giving to God the ultimate best. Oh yeah, she didn't just say, God, I want a child or I want a man-child. She's like, I want a man-child, but that man-child I'm gonna place at a higher level, and I'm going to make him a Nazirite unto you. I'm going to give God, not only am I going to give you this child back, but I'm going to give him back to you as a Nazirite. Oh yes, she was going for the best. Now, let's read verses 12 to 16. And it says here, and it came to pass, as she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli marked her mouth. Now Hannah, she spoke in her heart. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought that she had been drunken. And Eli said unto her, How long will you be drunken? Put away the wine from you. And Hannah answered and said, No, my Lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Count not thine handmaid for a daughter of Belial. For out of the abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken hitherto. Now, Eli has never seen this before. He didn't know what to make of it. Up until this time, the conventional way to pray was by burning incense and bringing an animal sacrifice. There must be certain things to be done in order to pray to God. And that was the conventional way of praying to God. You brought something, it's a sacrifice to God. Hannah, she didn't do it. She didn't do it. No. But then Hannah shows up with no incense, no sacrifice, and not seeking any help from the high priest. Oh yeah, she just walks right in, walks right by him and starts praying. Never seen that before, right? Because of the bitterness of her heart, she wastes no time with formalities and conventional procedure. She goes boldly to the temple and she pours out her heart to God. And she speaks plainly and openly to God. Hannah's unorthodox, unscripted, private prayer to God makes a mark on history. Up until the time of Hannah, it seems that she is the first ordinary person, not a priest or a Levite, but she's the first ordinary person to enter into the sanctuary and pour out her heart unto God, completely ignoring the conventional approach to God in prayer. Oh yeah. She was a pioneer. She was a pioneer when she did this. This ordinary woman has left her mark on history that teaches us that prayer does not come from being holy or free from being just a pastor or a Bible study leader. No, prayer doesn't come from that. But that we hold, it comes from a deep inner burden in our heart. That's where prayer comes from. Prayer comes from a deep burden, a burden in our heart to pray unto God, not conventionally, but brokenness before God. In verse 12, it must be that Hannah must not have gone very far into the temple grounds. She had to be somewhere near Eli for him to be able to see her lips moving. She probably was in so much anguish that she got to the temple grounds and just dropped down and prayed. In verse 13, we see an excellent example of what Jesus taught in Matthew chapter 6, verses 5 through 8. Real prayer unto God does not include loud and bold words. It doesn't need to be seen and admired by others. But real fervent prayer comes from a heart that is in real need. Like Hannah, the fervent prayer is unconventional. It will pray at times when others would not pray. It will pray in places where others would not go and pray. Fervent prayer doesn't need nice surroundings. It just needs to be alone with God. God who can understand the whispers of broken lips. Eli misunderstood Hannah's prayer because he was out of fellowship with God. He had been out of fellowship with God for some time now. And the sad part is that he probably didn't even realize it. His position as high priest had deceived him into thinking that he was okay with God. Eli judged Hannah to be drunk with wine when he himself was drunk with the compromise and with the sinfulness of his two sons. In verse 15, though she was accused of being drunken, yet she does not get offended, but she answers Eli with reverence and with humility. You know, how often are we to make quick judgments of others when we do not have the full story? We don't have the full story on people's lives, and we see somebody doing something or acting differently, and we automatically want to judge them. We need to kind of back off and let God deal with them, and for us to say, you know what, they're in God's hands. It wasn't what Hannah had poured out it wasn't what Hannah had poured into her body, but it was what she was pouring out of her heart. In verse 16, the phrase daughter of Belial means the same thing that we saw when we said the sons of Belial in chapter 2 and verse 12. It means a worthless and a wicked person. It does not mean a worshiper of Belial. It was this phrase, a son or a daughter of Belial, it was used to call someone worthless. As we finish with Hannah's prayer, John Bunyan said that when praying, it is better to have a heart without words than to have words without heart. Let us often take stock in how our prayer life is with God. We need to take stock. How is our prayer life with God? Is it hard? Is it just words with no heart? Or are we pouring out our heart with not many words? We need to put our heart. You don't have to speak a lot of words. You don't have to have a lot of wonderful things to say to God. We just need to pour out our heart unto Him. In verses 17 and 18, we see that Eli does have some usefulness left in his sorry life. Eli recognizes that Hannah's prayer was fervent and sincere. So he pronounces a blessing on Hannah and joins his prayer with Hannah's prayer. The Bible does not say that Eli even knew what she was praying for. But Hannah humbled herself and accepted Eli's blessing as a high priest. And when she leaves with a heart unburdened. Her whole countenance had changed. The high priest had blessed her and prayed for her, and gave her great hope and courage in trusting God. She went away knowing that the high priest had prayed for her and blessed her. And that meant everything to her. How many people would have gotten offended at the pastor and spread gossip around the church and led a conspiracy, or even may have gotten a lawyer? Oh yeah, I got offended. The pastor said this about me. He said I was a drunk. And how many people get offended? Hannah was of a different spirit than they. She poured out her heart to God, and then she got an extra benefit by Eli blessing her and praying for her. Hannah was not concerned with who scooped the ice cream onto her cone. She just wanted the ice cream. She didn't care who scooped the ice cream onto her cone. She just wanted the ice cream. She didn't care what kind of person it was who gave her the ice cream cone. The most important part to her was the ice cream. And she didn't care what kind of person Eli was. He was the high priest, and he pronounced the blessing and a prayer upon her, and that's what mattered to her. Many people get offended over little things, and they miss the blessing. Hannah, she didn't miss the blessing. She didn't get offended. She didn't get her heart broken and miss the blessing. She grasped onto that blessing that Eli gave her. All right? Until next time, walk with the Lord. I know He walks with you.